Welcome back from spring break once again. And
Yes.
and
never ending.
All of the spring breaks are done now, I think.
No, mine is not. My son is on spring break now.
No.
It's never ending.
Oh my gosh.
It's never ending.
Are you kidding me?
He is by himself on spring break. His sister, as you know, is back at school. And he woke up this morning and it was like out of Home Alone. He thought he was just going to, climb up on whatever he wanted to, make himself some cereal, and was very upset when he found out at 2:00 he was going to have to get out of his pajamas and actually go to a volleyball game with Brian to go see his sister play volleyball. He was real upset.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, the spring breaks have now been I feel like this is 6 weeks of spring break.
You're 100%.
It's so long.
I don't even know when spring started. I forget now because I feel like it's summer. There's been so many spring breaks.
Right.
It's
Right.
too much. Please
And now
stop.
we're right around the corner from camp. So
I know, right?
Oh my
camp.
gosh. You
I
just
know,
had
well,
to say that dread
I know. I
word.
feel bad for you guys. The word camp for you guys is totally different than the rest of the country.
I know.
Your camp has me itching already that you're going to be checking heads.
Yes.
I have to tell you, spring break wise, though, Molly, you posted something on your social media that made me and Jenny laugh so hard about spring cleaning.
Okay.
Do you remember what you posted about?
Oh, it was the thing about when you're supposed to wash things and clean things. There's one thing on the list that I have to bring up that I don't agree with.
Okay.
The bra.
Well, that's what we wanted to talk
The
about.
bra like every 2 to 3 weeks. I'm like, no.
Or was it 2 to 3 days? Or was it weeks?
No, it said weeks, but you
It did say
know your
weeks, yeah.
titties are sweating. Your titties be sweating.
Yes.
I was going to say even 2 to, I guess 2 to 3 days, everybody does, but 2 to 3 weeks.
For real.
Right.
Your boobs sweat every day.
That was the one thing on the list that I was like, absolutely not. You have to wash that more.
No, but even it was like when to wash your curtains, but I was laughing so hard. I was like, has Molly turned into my grandma? Where she just like, remember.
I was just trying to post some great information for people to have for their spring cleaning.
Which some of it was really funny. Can you please just mention some of it? Like, it was so great. There was like, one was about.
I'll have to go back and look at it. I don't
I've got
remember.
it. I've got it. It's
Thank you,
jeans
Jenny.
Every 4 to 5 wears.
What? Oh.
No.
I was going
to. No, that is true because, okay, isn't it Anderson Cooper? He does not wash his jeans for like a month. Like you're supposed to wear your jeans for
But what if you're
longer periods of
sweaty
time.
in there? I mean, I put deodorant in there, but still.
I'm
What do you
just
mean you put
saying, that's what
wait,
they
stop.
say that.
Stop.
Yeah.
Jenny, what do you mean you put deodorant in there?
Well, excuse me, but I use Lumi. I put Lumi full body deodorant in my.
Is this appropriate deodorant that is supposed to be used below the belt?
Yes, pits under the boobs and in the the bikini area, so that I don't have stinky parts because we are in perimenopause and I'm sweaty and I'm sorry, but I feel like I smell like a barn if I am not fully deodorized.
So let's talk this jean thing out. Okay, so I get it. Guys think that they can wear it because some guys wear boxers, which really is a pair of shorts under the jeans. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit more protection, but a whole month of not washing your jeans,
Especially when you wear a thong.
don't they walk on their own?
It's because the way the jeans are. They say that they get softer, I guess, when you don't wash them as much. I mean,
I remember that when I was younger. I think I did that in college.
but yeah, it says on here, bra every 2 to 3 weeks. I don't agree with that whatsoever.
No.
We have purse and handbag every week.
Wash it or clean it,
I
dump
think it
it
says
out.
you're supposed to wipe it down, maybe.
No, I definitely go through these phases twice a year, like spring cleaning or whatever you want to call fall and spring cleaning, where I then start opening my purse as a mother and realizing all the things that I have just buried in there.
Yes. Dirty Kleenexes, candy wrappers, crackers.
and
Happy Meal toys.
things that you tell your kids to spit
Socks.
out of your mouth. Yes, spit this out of your mouth, please. Give it to me. Or just parts of receipts and just lipstick that I one of them has grabbed out of my bag. As you know, every kid wants to come and get your lipstick, and you forget to put the lid on. I definitely
everywhere. Yes,
I definitely should be cleaning my purse out once a week, not twice a year, for that reason.
Right.
And there's a million times that I'm like, Brian, I can't find this credit card, and then I go through 17 handbags and find it. But yeah, no, I agree with that. But the curtains too. I was trying to think how often do people wash their curtains?
probably never.
I wash mine once a year.
Of course, Molly.
I do
Molly
like
has
spring
a
cleaning.
schedule.
Molly has a schedule
have a
for washing her
schedule.
body, let alone her curtains.
She does. She washing schedule. And the other thing, the sink every day. Well, duh. I mean,
who doesn't wash their sink every day?
Who doesn't wash their sink? Think of all of the disgusting things that you put in your sink when you're cooking.
But if people don't wash their dishes every day, some people let it sit in there.
Wait a minute. Girls, Ivan, I bet you I know what it is.
What?
Because it didn't say kitchen sink, right? It just said sink. Think about the bathroom sink. There are some people who, I used to be one of these people when I was younger. I am no longer that way. My husband would probably leave me. But that would leave the, the toothpaste or something, you're in a hurry, and then the toothpaste gets stuck in your sink or whatever. So maybe they're referring to those people like where you don't wash the sink out every day because you don't want to leave like the toothpaste crud in there. Maybe that's what they mean. Because the kitchen sink would be really gross.
You don't want to leave hair in the sink either.
Right. Yeah, hair. Just things like that. That makes sense. Some people do need a reminder with that. I'll agree with that.
Wait, I don't agree with this one either. It says bath towel once a week.
Oh, that one I wanted to talk to you about too.
Did we not learn?
Although I think Dave is listening, our producer. I thought he was like, that's about right. And I was like, back it up, Dave.
No, I thought you're supposed to do it like once every 3 to 4 days. Come on, Dave.
I do it every 2 days.
I do every 2 days. 3 to 4, depending.
I do every 2. I just feel like I want my towel fresh. Now, I think Brian probably does 2 to 3.
That's about what we do. And the shower head got me too, because I've been places where they haven't cleaned their shower head and there's that black mold growing on the top of it.
You know what?
It might come down on you in the shower. Ugh.
Might get in your hair.
How often is the shower head?
Every month.
Every month.
Whoa, no, I'm definitely in trouble there. I do not clean my shower head every month.
You better wipe that mold off there.
Yeah, unless the shower head is code for something else I don't know about.
We do need to discuss this one though, because it says, and I'm going to ask this: computer and keyboard as needed. How often are y'all cleaning your keyboards?
No. That's German 101. Your keyboard is like being on an escalator in the airport. With, you know what I mean? Like you're constantly touching other things and touching it. You need to clean your keyboard
yours?
every day.
Oh, you're better than me. I don't do that.
You're better than me too.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
No, I think mine gets sticky. I'm one of those people that I'm running around with my computer taking so many notes. My hands are touching things. So I wipe down every morning my keyboard.
That's good.
Yeah. With the same thing I wipe down with my glasses.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from this list is the bra, because come on, people.
That this list is from like 1961.
When you live in the South and the humidity hits.
Right.
Yeah. Be washing
your bra. You cannot wear the
sweating.
same bra. People would smell you walking around the block from the other end if you didn't wash your bra.
Right.
But every 2 to 3 weeks living in Atlanta, it's just not happening.
Listen, living anywhere, people wash your bra more than every 2 weeks, please.
Or just don't wear a bra.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
make sure you Lumi.
Yeah.
You Lumi well.
But listen, here's the thing. Lumi smells funky. Let's not kid ourselves, girls.
It smells great on me. But I've used several of the natural deodorants. And for me, because it's different with everyone's body chemistry, Lumi actually works really well on me and it smells good. But there have been others that I smelled. I mean, I smell like I had been out mowing the lawn and it's 90 degrees.
No, but when you take it out and you smell it, to me, it's just not the greatest. Okay, well, the takeaway here is, everyone, wash your bra and don't follow. Please wash your jeans.
Drama's about to end, cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky's what we do, it's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. Your gross out journey starts right here on Oh Gross.
Well, enough of the dirty jeans that walk on their own. And people who don't wash their bras, but we are now pivoting to another health topic. Chris beat cancer, who I had the opportunity of interviewing Chris Wark on our podcast over break. And he talked about some really important, sometimes scary information and gross information, but important information when it comes to our health. And one of the topics I wanted to chat about real quick before we get into the interview and everyone can take a listen is this article that that popped up in the news after interviewing him again about the plastics, the microplastics that people are finding in the human brain, right? And the human body. But I mean, you guys have been seeing that too, right? I mean, it's been everywhere. It's literally like the top of the news and it's real.
It is. It's crazy. The research that I've seen about it recently, that the concentration of microplastics in brains has increased by 50% over the past 8 years.
That's so scary.
It's so scary.
So scary.
And it is scary, but I think what we try to always reiterate here at Oak Gross is what we can do, right? And that we're not trying to create fear, we're trying to give information. And the truth is that sometimes you will see on social media things that are not true, right? That are exaggerated. But the science is backing this one, that microplastics are a real problem for all of us and that there are things we can do to change it. So this conversation with Chris is a really great. And also, as you guys know, Chris is a huge part of Brian and I's journey when he had colon cancer. I met Chris back in 2010 on the phone and through reaching out to him because he was talking a little bit about at that time what he went through with colon cancer. And it was similar to what Brian was going through, and we connected. And that was a big part of our journey that we will talk more about in another episode because it was such a great interview. We're going to do 2 parts and we're going to get to hear Brian's story. But I think the great thing about this interview with Chris is also that while we're talking about some scary subjects, right, and some scary things that we're seeing in the news, great takeaways and great things that everyone can do to improve their health, improve their life, and hopefully prevent some of these things that we're seeing showing up now when it comes to microplastics and everything else.
Yes. And I think, the information is it's so needed right now. It was really great to have Chris on and really listen to what he had to say.
So let's listen to the interview right now and we will all be back.
On Oak Gross.
Well, thank you so much. We are excited to have Chris Wark here today. Thank you for coming on, Oak Gross.
It's good to be with you. I'm excited.
You're just an amazing human and you are a huge part of Brian's health journey and what we went through with colon cancer. And it was so amazing to connect with you. But I do want to tell anybody who doesn't know just a little bit more about you. You are a successful author. You are a patient advocate. You are a thriver and survivor yourself of colon cancer. And you've created a huge platform for other, as you call them, thrivers, right? To learn how to navigate their health journey in a way that they're in control of, but also doing what we want to do at Oak Gross, which is just talking about things that people are afraid to talk about, right? And just put out there and realize that you don't have to be afraid of talking about things when it comes to our health. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up being who you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I was diagnosed in December 2003 with colon cancer. And it was after having abdominal pain for the better part of a year. And diagnosed by colonoscopy and biopsy confirmed colon cancer. I was rushed into surgery. They took out a third of my large intestine. When I woke up, they said, "You're worse than we thought. You're stage 3C, which means you need chemotherapy." When I got home from surgery, I just prayed about it because I didn't have a good feeling about chemotherapy. And I knew how toxic it was. I mean, I really didn't know how toxic it was, but let me just say, I knew it was poisonous. I knew it was highly toxic. And with my limited life experience, I had an aversion to it. And I got a book 2 days later that was sent to me from a friend of my dad's. And this was a book about healing with a raw food diet. And it was written by a man named George Malcolmus, who had healed his colon cancer with a raw food diet. And so that felt like an answer to prayer. And it opened my eyes to the world of nutrition and natural healing. And I realized that I needed to take massive action to transform my life and my health. And I also realized that I had a choice before me. And that choice was to go down the path of victimhood or to take responsibility for my life and my health. I chose the latter. And that was quite empowering to realize, you're not a victim of disease. Many diseases are the result of our diet and lifestyle and environment.
And
up to
stress.
90%.
Yeah, and stress on our body in general.
Right.
Yeah.
Up to 90% of cancers are caused by diet, lifestyle, and environment. Stress is a big part of that. And we could talk about stress in great detail. I mean, it's sort of an umbrella health destroyer. But I was empowered. And I realized, wow, there's a lot in my life I can change, and I'm going to change everything I can. I'm going to identify every negative factor in my life that may be contributing to my disease. I'm going to remove those things, and I'm going to replace them with health promoters. So remove the disease promoters, replace them with health promoters. And it started with the food, and then it moved on into, filtering your water and changing your body care products. And then from the physical things, once I sort of figured that out, then I moved into the emotional and spiritual things and stress. And so these are not things you can change overnight.
No.
But if you're committed to the process, you can systematically, day by day, like you said, baby steps, you can start making healthier changes and change your daily routine so that from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed each day, that's all you have control over.
Right.
You can optimize your health and healing practices.
And I think people need to know that we talk about this concept in like coaching and health coaching about crowding out, right? Instead of introducing new things as part of it too, like positive things to outbalance. A lot of times we get so hard on ourselves, or we're beating ourselves up that we ate the wrong thing, we did the wrong thing. And that's where the stress comes. And if you just, like you're saying, keep introducing positive things, whether it be food or the way you handle things emotionally, eventually the bad stuff gets crowded out because you're so excited about how good you feel.
Yeah. And I think that excitement for me, it also came with education.
Yes.
Because the more that I read about healing, and the more testimonials I read about people who had healed cancer, the more books I read by doctors and holistic practitioners that were teaching these principles of health and healing, the more excited I became. I went from being hopeful but skeptical that healing was possible to believing that healing was possible. And for me, that's the most important factor in survival, is believing that healing is possible. Whether you're doing conventional treatment or you're doing a natural, holistic, alternative treatment plan, you have to believe that healing is possible. Because if you do, then what that does is that empowers you to make positive changes in your life and to take action. If you don't believe healing is possible, you're already defeated.
So I want to go back, and I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you've touched so many people's lives, but our story goes back to 2010. And Brian was going in for a routine colonoscopy, we thought. Well, it wasn't routine, I guess, at the age, but he had some blood, in his stool, which we thought, of course, was hemorrhoids. And so when he went in for his colonoscopy, I'll never forget that day, his doctor pulled me aside and said, "You're going to have to go to a CT scan." And I sat there and said, "Well, you need to tell me why I'm not going, because that's the producer in me that I need to get intel." And it took a long time, but finally he said, "We found a mass that's about the size of an orange." So we headed to the CT scan, and our journey started at that moment of, how can any of this happen? And at the time, there just wasn't as much information as we have now out there about support for wanting to look for alternative methods, or maybe how do I even just support my journey of health when I've, have the possibility of facing cancer. So for Brian, we found out that it was what they believed was stage 3B, 3 lymph nodes after multiple tests had lit up. And so they believed that was, what he had. And at that time, I remember, okay, first, let's start praying and meditating. That was the first instinct. And the second was we started going through our cupboards, and I just started taking everything out. I remember the day we came home from his test and it was official, his scan. I literally just started emptying our cupboards. And I was like, what is in everything, from the canned foods to what we're putting on our skin? And it became sort of like this gut instinct of like, hey, something happened here, because he wasn't a heavy meat eater. Didn't have some sort of diet that would make sure that you would obviously say, oh, well, this person might have some sort of health issue. And also he had gone through the blood tests, and not even his levels were higher, nor did he have any genetic reason why they believed he could have been susceptible to colon cancer. So it was a couple of days in, and I was starting the whole, let's go vegan and let's go raw. And back then, people might not remember, they were like chat groups. What do we call them? Oh my gosh, like the boards. They're the board groups.
Forum or chat board or message board or something.
It was like a forum chat. Yeah. You post something in a forum chat, because I was posting in all these forums and had just started writing about our journey and little groups that you could post in. And I think it was on November 7th. So this probably was about 4 days into me just turning the house upside down and starting to grow wheatgrass or anything that we could. And I posted and I said, hey, has anyone ever heard about someone curing themselves or even just supporting their journey with colon cancer with food and diet and change? A woman reached out to me and said, hey, it's too late for me, but there's this guy, Chris beat cancer. Sounds like his story is very similar to your husband. You should reach out to him. And then I sent you an email. Do you remember when we sent the email? I know it's been so long.
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't remember the email from 15 years ago.
Why don't you remember the email from like 2010?
Okay. So I had only been public for maybe 5 months.
I remember. Yes, because I remember you just started out.
I probably only had a handful of articles on my website. It was bare bones.
So you just started, November 7th, 2010.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I sent you an email. And so in the email, I was like, listen, my husband has been diagnosed with this, and I just heard about you and we're doing all these things and can we connect? And you said, give me a call. And so I called you. And when I called you, we started swapping information. And then I heard about your journey. And I remember you saying this to me, when I'm 10 years clean, then I'm really going to be able to speak on a larger platform. But I have just started talking about it because I think you were at the 7 years mark when we spoke.
Probably 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you saying like, I'm going to take this to the next level. And I remember when you did hit 10 years, and I remember the first time I started seeing more and more about Chris beat cancer on a larger and larger platforms.
So cool.
Yeah. So cool. Look at now. I will never forget those conversations. And back then, even water filtration was hard. It was totally different. Now there's so many options.
It's really exciting. I mean, there's been a massive shift in public health and the perception of what's healthy and the understanding of what's contributing to our massive epidemic of chronic disease. And a lot of it is rooted in pollution, air pollution, water pollution, and food pollution. So many toxic elements, additives and preservatives, artificial ingredients and colors, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, all of this toxic stuff that's in our food supply. That was very fringe. These were very fringe ideas and fringe topics 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I mean, it was only the really hardcore natural health community and cancer community. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was diagnosed in December 2003, and January 2004 is really when my transformation started. And yeah, I mean, every book I read was talking about the toxins in our environment and how horrible the American diet was and how it was contributing to cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all these problems. I mean, it's like every day I'm seeing people talking about, chatter online about getting fluoride out of our drinking water, right, and re-examining the childhood vaccination schedule and like all these really important things that people have just assumed were healthy and good for us that are now once put under a critical eye, and you look at the evidence, you realize, wait, there is no evidence that fluoride is making our teeth healthier. And there's actually evidence it's making us sick.
Yeah. Well, I do remember when we were talking, and I remember this, that you at the time, can you talk a little bit about how you purified your water? Wasn't it, you literally were steaming it, correct?
Yeah, I started using a countertop steam distiller, and now I use a Berkey water filter. There's so many great filtration options out there. But yeah, I used a steam distiller for many years. Reverse osmosis, any reverse osmosis system is a great method. The Berkey's great. There's so many good options now. I mean, so much better than, the kind that you just screw onto the end of your kitchen faucet or the Brita pitcher. Those are not very effective. They don't really remove much. But yeah, there's a huge awareness of just all the toxic stuff that's in our water.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the chlorine and fluoride, which they add to it. There are pharmaceuticals in the water supply. There are microplastics. You can have lead and arsenic and all kinds of environmental pollutants, pesticides. I mean, it's a frighteningly long list of contaminants that are found in municipal water supplies. And of course, it depends on where you live. But the important takeaway is just get a good water filter, clean up your water. It's a great first step in the systematic change that needs to happen if you really want to optimize your health.
Everyone needs water. That's number one. And it needs to be something that is clean and is void of these things that we don't need to be ingesting. But going back, what was crazy for us is once we connected with you, we then had the faith that it could happen because we had talked to you and we had known, okay, wait, well, he did this. And we had the same instinct, like there's something we can do. And once we had that momentum, we kept going. And, and this is the crazy part of the story, within 18 days, Brian's blood work went from where they said he had rickets to it was really, his blood work was abominable. It was very scary. And when he was rolled into surgery on the 19th day, they said, your blood work is like a teenager now. What did you do? Literally 18 days of him changing his diet, the doctor saw a difference. So Brian, come join us here if you can.
Hello.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
And now, Brian, you just had your colonoscopy, right? And so what are we at now?
Yeah, 15 years.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That's a milestone.
One little polyp, they took it out, came back clean. And he said, the protocol my doctor likes to do for the cancer survivors is every 3 and then go back in and get it checked out again.
Well, you probably know this, but young adult colon cancer is one of the fastest growing segments of cancer in the population. There's more and more young people are being diagnosed with colon cancer than ever before. And even teenagers now, which is insane.
Yeah. And it was such an eye-opener for me because I was like, wait a minute, there's not one written rule of how you handle even how you approach things holistically. You have to ask questions like, can we wait? We would like to do this with our body. And sometimes a good doctor might say, yeah, wait, because it's going to make you stronger for surgery. But in Brian's case, they said, this is a large mass and we already have 3 lymph nodes lit up. We want to get it out, but let's get it out in a way that it's minimally invasive while you're doing the diet and while you're doing other things. And then he said to us, we said, we really don't want to do chemo from the research that we've looked at. There's nothing past 5 years of, survival rates or anything. And he said, I will support you on that part of the journey and what you want to do.
Especially with the chemo being so young, it's a different question of how much is this really going to help or hurt me, and weighing that choice and figuring out that balance to make a good decision.
And and some doctors were against what we were saying, right? But we had found a perfect oncologist even, because he still had to see an oncologist even though we weren't getting chemo. And that oncologist understood our decision. And he said at the time, we'd be part of a trial study because they couldn't figure out why young people were getting colon cancer 15 years ago. So at the time, 15 years ago, they knew something was up already.
So you didn't have Lynch or any genetic driver?
No, not at the time with what they had available. Yeah, they didn't see any genetics.
Which then made us go, it's got to be environmental.
If it's not genetic, then you have to look at diet.
Yeah.
Diet is the major driver of many cancers.
And it can be anything, like especially with all the microplastics and everything else in our diet nowadays. I mean, we went so clean that we were growing things in the kitchen and we grew wheatgrass because wheatgrass was I tell everybody wheatgrass is amazing. I mean, Chris, can you talk a little bit about wheatgrass in general? Because I think that's really important in anyone's healing.
Well, I'm not an expert on wheatgrass, but I did consume quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
A lot of wheatgrass and barley grass and chlorella and spirulina, all of these green superfoods. And one of the big benefits from these young green leafy grasses and green algae and things is they're just very, very high in chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is just an incredible nutrient that is very similar in structure to human blood. It's a healing nutrient that is found in nature. It's found in all green leafy vegetables, and especially high concentrations when you're juicing something like wheatgrass or barley grass or alfalfa. You can even get liquid chlorophyll, which I think is an amazing product. I actually prefer that to wheatgrass.
Yeah, because I do
That's
too. In
made
the water,
from alfalfa. Yeah. It just tastes better.
It tastes better. It's like minty.
Yeah, chlorella has that weird, kind of, sweetness that's
kind of nauseating.
Yeah, not great. But I got it down. And, I have a friend named Courtney Campbell who healed her lymphoma all naturally with nutrition. And she would make these big green smoothies and hold her nose and drink the entire smoothie. And she did it for years. She had such a strong gag reflex and nauseous reflex.
I don't know what it is. It's got to be something genetically. I don't know.
Every sip. Every sip.
It's the wheat. I don't know.
Holding her nose. And I love that because that is a determined woman, right?
Yeah.
She was determined to live. She was determined to get the good stuff in her body. And she just wasn't making any excuses, right? There's a lot of people that just be like, I just can't drink that. It makes me nauseous. I don't like the taste. I don't like the texture. It's like, well, you don't have a very strong will to live, because people that I know who've healed cancer, who've survived against the odds, they make no excuses.
Right.
If they're convinced something might be helpful, then they will do it. And they will hold their nose if they have to, but they will do it.
Brian started to like the wheatgrass at one point. Remember, Brian, you said it started tasting sweet to you? And I was like,
maybe the longer I was on a vegan diet or cleaner or just doing all the things, that kind of a grassy taste kind of started to thin out. And then it just had a sweet little taste to it for whatever reason.
I was always holding my nose, but I learned a trick where you put almost like if you're doing a tequila shot, you know how some people will do like the lemon or whatever afterward. So you put cinnamon on your hand to smell it first to trick your brain. Then you do the shot and then you suck a lemon.
Oh, the lemon makes sense, but that cinnamon I've never heard before. I want to try that.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah. I once traded wheatgrass shots with Isaac Hayes.
Oh, cool. That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. The late, great Isaac Hayes. I went to a Whole Foods. This was right around that cancer time, Whole Foods used to have a juicers.
I remember.
They used to make fresh juice,
Yes,
and they used to make wheatgrass shots. Like, it was a much
We went
better.
there for a bunch of wheatgrass shots in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Go up to the juice bar, to the counter, and I sit at the counter, and I look to my right, and there's Isaac Hayes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he's like, let me get 2 double wheatgrass shots. So he gets 2 double shots, and so I was like, 2 double shots, man, that's serious, And so we started chatting about that, and I was like, all right, well, if you're doing it, I'll do it, So anyway, had a great little moment there with Isaac Hayes.
Oh, I love that.
That is funny. And speaking of juicing, Kara was throwing all the carrot juice at me for all the beta carotene and everything, to the point that I got, I guess, what do they call it?
Anemia.
To back it up, just so I don't sound like I'm crazy, you and I had spoke, Chris, and your iron was so low. Like, they thought he had rickets, and he had so much bleeding from the tumor and all these other things that were happening. I was like, how do we know he finally is absorbing these nutrients? Because that's a big thing, and I remember you're like, well, if you turn orange, right, it's working. So I was like, Brian, we got to wait till you turn orange. And our whole family had a celebration the day his palms turned orange.
Yeah, but your knuckles and your elbows start turning orange, and
it took a long time. I got to tell you, which is also interesting, it took months, because he was drinking 2 to 3 glasses of juice a day on top of other green juices. And it took months for finally his body to absorb it. Whereas if I had just been drinking that much, I probably would have turned to orange much sooner.
Well, yeah, that's also sort of a measurement of how much your body is using versus storing. Mm-hmm. And so his body was obviously using a lot of beta carotene. All the beta carotene he was consuming, it was using. And then eventually you sort of got to a threshold where your body was improving, your health was improving, and the amount of beta carotene you were consuming was more than your body needed or could use. And then that's when it stores it in your skin for later. And that's why babies turn orange when you feed them too many carrots, and why humans turn orange if they drink too much carrot juice for over a period of time. It's kind of a funny phenomenon, and most doctors don't understand it, and they think you're jaundiced or something.
Right.
Or they'll tell you, well, you probably shouldn't drink so much carrot juice, your skin's turning orange, as if you're harming yourself. But if you stop, eventually your body will use those reserves that are stored in your skin, and your skin will go back to normal.
But you did go back to normal, but it was really funny. It was like, he's like, I'm orange, yay! It was like, I've arrived, I'm orange.
Right. It was pretty funny. One of the things I know that you mentioned and you talk about is not being a victim, but also that mental change of taking charge. I remember back when Kara had told me she talked to you and about who you were, and it was a good, I guess, resource for me, and also a motivation at that point, because it's got that mindset of, what else do I have to lose? I can potentially die. What else could essentially be worse than trying a vegan diet, eliminating everything I possibly can? And it is not easy. And the hard part is sticking to it. We're trying to have that determination and that taking that power in yourself to do it.
Well, discouragement, depression, and hopelessness are very powerful, and they're very destructive. And it's a daily fight to overcome the resistance that you feel and make healthy choices, because the easy path is just to wallow in self-pity, you know what I mean? And just eat pizza, right? And eat pizza and drink beer every night and just feel sorry for yourself and try to drown out your fears and your worries and your anxieties and the will to live. I call it the beat cancer mindset, but believing that healing is possible is the first step, but then you really have to decide, do I want to live? Yeah. And if you decide, yes, I do want to live, if you just ask yourself and make a decision, yes or no, if the answer is yes, then you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get well.
Yeah.
And not make any excuses, and just be determined to pick a path and stay the course, and do it when you don't feel like doing it. Exercise when you don't feel like it. Make your juice when you don't feel like it. Eat the giant salad when you don't feel like it, right? And it's just that daily routine where you're building this healing momentum. And the hardest part is the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Just getting started. That's the hardest part. And then once you get going, it's easy to keep that wheel, that bicycle wheel turning. Like that's the analogy I like to use. The hardest pedal is the first one, right? To go from 0 to 1. But then once the wheels are rolling, you can keep it going and things get easier and your taste buds change and healthy food starts to taste better and you get in a routine. All those health benefits snowball. Just like bad habits will snowball. Good habits snowball too. And your health starts to spiral up instead of spiraling down.
Your salad, Brian ate every day.
Well, I was going to say, I remember Kara came and she's like, oh, I talked to Crispy Cancer guy, that I've been talking to, and he's got this salad and it's got all the good things in it. So we should try it. I said, sure, no problem. What's the recipe?
I think you ate it every day for 2 years, every single day.
I pretty much ate it every day for lunch. Well, one, it's a really good salad. So, and then, once you're on that journey and two, it was like, okay, I knew from, your information and reading what the ingredients were, a lot of the things that could help me, especially, cancer surviving and with the colon. So, I was all in, and I'm sure people at work and places, and I had all the raw garlic in there and everything. And it's a pretty stinky salad from the outside with, a lot of stuff in it. But
the giant cancer fighting salad has everything in it. It is the most nutritious, most potent anti-cancer meal, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
And it fills you up and gives you energy and supplies your body with all these incredible micronutrients that help it repair, regenerate, detoxify, and heal.
Yeah.
People might hear like, oh, this just sounds too simple. I'm just telling you, the truth is simple, right? You don't have to be a perfectionist. You don't have to never enjoy a Coca-Cola ever again, right? But if you are really committed, and it helps if you have a serious disease, frankly, right?
Then you're forced, right?
That's a motivator.
Yeah, that was no other choice.
Right? For the average person cruising through life that doesn't have any major health problems, it's hard for them to get motivated. But for a person that's in a health crisis, man, I'm telling you, for a lot of them that find me and connect with me, they are highly motivated, like you were.
Yeah.
Like getting people excited about eating healthy, I think is the best strategy. I just want to encourage anybody listening. It's really not hard. Not to be a shameless self-promoter, but I have a really good cookbook. It's called Beat Cancer Kitchen.
Yes, you do. You do have a great cookbook.
There it is.
Yes.
Right there. Mm-hmm. It's over my left shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's full color, and the recipes are amazing. They're so delicious. And I can even tell you, get the book, make a couple of the recipes. If you don't like them, just send it back to Amazon and get your money back, okay? It's fine.
What do you think is the biggest gross misconception or misinformation when it comes around our whole health in general?
When I was diagnosed and first learning about health and healing, I look back and I'm thankful that the internet was not helpful to me in 2004. There just wasn't, there was no social media. There was no YouTube, right? We're all old enough to remember that. The internet was basically text, right? Text-based. There were photos, there were pictures, but there was no video because we were all on dial-up, right? And the bandwidth wasn't big enough and all that. So I just went from book to book to book.
Right.
And every book that I found at that time saying the same thing. They were all reinforcing this idea of eating a whole foods diet, mostly raw, plant-based diet, juicing, forgiveness, detoxification, exercise. There's core principles of health. And even though I felt like I didn't have as much information and reinforcement as I wished, I had enough, right? I had enough. Now there's a million websites and influencers and opinions and online. And so we have a massive misinformation problem, right?
Yeah.
Where a lot of people who may be well-meaning, or maybe they're just doing it for attention, or they're just doing it to sell you something, spouting off health advice with no experience, right? People who have not healed themselves or anyone else.
Right.
Are telling you how to be healthier. That's sort of like the foundation of the problem. And so what I teach and I encourage people in my community to do is find people who've been successful and learn from them.
Yeah.
Right? Don't listen to all the influencers and doctors and experts who haven't achieved what you're trying to achieve, right? And now we have hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands. I've personally interviewed over 100 people who have healed cancer, either after conventional treatment failed them or with no conventional treatment, right? I've interviewed all types and stages of cancer survivors who took a holistic approach. And so I'm just trying to contribute to the knowledge base out there for any person to find, right? It's like, oh, you have lymphoma? Great. Here's some interviews with people who've healed lymphoma. Oh, you've got breast cancer? Here's some interviews with women who've healed breast cancer. You've got colon cancer? Here's an interview or several interviews with people who've healed colon cancer. Yeah, even stage 4. So it's like, I'm just constantly pointing my audience and anyone who's paying attention and wants to know toward these survivor stories. So I'm one, right? I'm one story.
Yeah.
But my story is not any better or more important. And frankly, my story is not even as good as some of the other stories out there because I had surgery. So some people could discount and say, well, you had surgery, That's fine. That's fine. You can discount my story, ignore it, not believe it. It's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Right. I've got some better stories than that. One of them I mentioned earlier, Courtney Campbell, healed her lymphoma with nutrition, no drugs, no conventional interventions whatsoever. It's like, what are you going to say about that?
Right.
So to me, that's really what matters the most is like, look at the survivor stories. Don't listen to the fad diet influencers, right? Find people who've healed what you have. I've interviewed Dr. Sarai Stancic. She healed her MS with a plant-based diet. I've interviewed Dr. Brooke Goldner, healed her lupus with a plant-based diet. I've interviewed Robbie and Cyrus, who run Mastering Diabetes and have the best program for reversing type 2 diabetes and managing type 1 diabetes with a plant-based diet. So it's like, it's not even just about cancer. I've interviewed a number of cardiologists, Dr. Joel Kahn, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who's technically not a cardiologist, but wrote How to Prevent Reverse Heart Disease with a plant-based diet. Proved it. A medical doctor who was not a cardiologist actually proved you can reverse advanced cardiovascular disease with a whole food plant-based diet. His research was actually, study was based on the work that Dr. Dean Ornish published. So it's like, it's amazing that this evidence is out there. Right? It's out there for anyone to find and learn from, but you have to look for it and you have to consume it, right?
From the right sources. And this is important.
Yeah, you have to take it in and you have to learn and think about it. I think we're just at this great moment in history where the tide is turning. Despite all the sort of pseudo health influencer advice, there are some large common threads that we all agree on, which is that processed food is terrible. Right. It is poisoning and polluting our bodies. It is making people sick and overweight and unhealthy. So we agree on that. Pesticides and fungicides and herbicides are highly toxic, and we really need to reevaluate what we're spraying on the food we eat. Because, hey, you can eat whole foods, but if they're covered in highly toxic, potentially cancer-causing chemicals, that ain't great, right? That's not good. So it's like, I'm excited that there are significant shifts happening at the government level, the agency level, and the media is talking about these things now. The public awareness it's never been greater than it is now. And I might be out of a job soon, right? Because the things I talk about, once they become widespread, it's like, I don't have anything new to tell you, right? Once everybody learns what I've learned and they know what I know, it's like, what do you need me for? But that's good, right? That's the goal.
There's all these things on the internet, right? That, as you were saying, some of them are fear-mongering, which doesn't help the scenario at all when it comes to trying to have whole health. But I do want, because I know when we were on the journey of learning everything that was in our food, right? There were a lot of gross things. So, and you've been doing this a very long time. Can you give us your top 5 grossest reveals that you found on your journey when you learned what is in our food when it comes to processed or on the shelf?
Oh, man. Gosh. I mean, there's a lot of horrifying ingredients in food. And Vani Hari has done such a great job of really taking it to the man, really exposing some of these really sketchy ingredients that, like the famous, the ingredient used in yoga mats was being used in Subway sandwich bread, that kind of stuff. Right. But really, I think the biggest eye-openers were, the pesticides and the pesticide residue that was on non-organic produce, right? It's something I never thought about. And so that was a huge eye-opener. Like, whoa, this is a big deal. And then learning about genetically modified food.
Yeah.
And obviously being sprayed with Roundup, which is glyphosate, which is now linked to certain types of cancer. And Bayer has been sued for so many millions of dollars by, I don't know, tens of thousands of people. I mean, they've got a real big problem because Bayer owns Roundup. They bought Monsanto. But pretty horrific. That, that was like, man, I don't want to consume that stuff.
Right.
To me, it's like I didn't have to learn too much. Instinctively, I just thought, if man made it, and this is something that Jack LaLanne said, if man made it, don't eat it.
It's so simple. It's so true.
Yeah, I didn't go too far down the rabbit hole investigating every single additive to see how bad they were.
Right.
I just stopped eating them, right? It's like, I don't need to know how bad they are. I'm just not going to eat them. If there's weird, additives, artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, texture enhancers, flavor enhancers on this food packaging, not going to eat it.
Natural flavor in general.
Yeah. And so there are much better people than me, like Vani and others, that have really gone down the rabbit hole and, Googled and researched all these individual additives that are being put in our food that are just like so terrible. And, this is kind of full circle because at the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about, I'm optimistic that some really big changes are happening. And one of them is that Secretary Kennedy just announced that they are targeting the GRAS designation, right? And the GRAS loophole. And that's GRAS, generally recognized as safe. Well, for most of my life, I mean, even up until, really recently, I didn't know the history of GRAS.
Right.
I didn't know that in 1958, they created this loophole where food manufacturers can self-designate food additives as safe. And they just call them, well, this is generally recognized as safe. According to who? According to us.
Right.
And we're using this additive or this preservative or this artificial color in our food, and we recognize it as safe. All they have to do is they think it's safe, and that therefore it must be safe. What a crock. And there are many other countries that don't allow food producers to do this.
Right. And I think for me, when I was going through it, the biggest shocker to me was almond milk, because that becomes your like, oh, I don't have time to make it, I'll go to it. And when I remember when we were switching over and having nut milk, and one day I was like, well, I don't have time to make it. And I bought almond milk and I read the back of it. And I read like what other fillers were in the almond milk. And I was like, and again, it was organic almond milk, right? And it's in everything. And the fact that every single product we have is susceptible, right? That's on our shelf to having this something put in it that you don't necessarily need.
I mean, again, read the label.
Right.
Some have a very short ingredient list and some have a longer ingredient list, right? It's like, just flip it over. Don't assume because it's in the health food store, because it says organic, that doesn't have maybe some funky additives that who knows if they're, good or not. I think the biggest alarm bell lately, and this is getting a lot of widespread traction too, which is great, is just the problem with microplastics.
Oh, I know.
Because, 20 years ago, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, like I was reading stuff like stay away from plastic.
Right,
and
water bottles.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now we have all this like legit science, right? Mainstream science being reported on, like on NBC nightly news, talking about microplastics. There's a recent study where the researchers studied 91 or 93 cadavers' brains and found alarmingly high levels of microplastics in these brains and of deceased people. And they basically said there's enough plastic in these brains to make a plastic spoon.
Yeah.
Right? To make a spoon out of all these, if they could, isolate all the little plastic particles, they'd have enough to make a spoon. And that's wild. And what we're just learning now is it appears that microplastics, which are ubiquitous, I mean, they're in the air. There's microplastic particles in the air you breathe. They're in our water supply and they're in our food, but they seem to be accumulating more in human brains than any other organ in your body. And that's not good. In some of these brains they studied, people with dementia had 3 to 5 times more microplastics in their brains. So that's a correlation, right? A strong correlation. The good news is that you can reduce your microplastic exposure by 90% by just not drinking bottled water.
Right. That's such a great.
That's it.
I saw
literally,
that.
You can cut your exposure by 90%.
That's a very, very important fact.
It's massive. It's massive.
It's massive.
The other things,
and it's simple.
Microplastics are also kind of high in alcohol. probably due to manufacturing. They're high in seafood because of environmental pollution. So if you want to avoid them there, there's a study you probably saw where they found that tea bags are releasing billions of nano particles, microplastic nanoparticles into your tea. So if you love tea, it doesn't mean you have to switch brands necessarily, but if they're using a plastic tea bag, just cut the bag open, get the loose leaves out, and put them in a cloth
Because you're heating up plastic. And that's, I think, even in Costco, that was another big study that I was reading, that the chickens in the bag, like when you get when people buy whole chicken in Costco in the plastic, and they're sitting there in the heat and under the lamp. We just did a thing on Gross about even the cutting boards. When people have plastic cutting boards, that you can consume up to like 10 credit cards in your lifetime just by the little shreds. Because think about that. That's actual shreds of plastic, getting into your food. And it's so, so important.
One other study, since we're on the plastic thing, just to end or to give people a little bit of hope here.
Yes, always.
They did a study on fish. They basically fed them microplastic particles, and to see if the fish retained them forever. Were they able to detoxify these particles? And what they found was that about 70% of the particles that they had absorbed, they were able to detoxify in some period of time. It might have been a year. Don't quote me on that, but whatever this study period was. So that is good. That's hopeful. The takeaway is like, hopefully it translates to humans, right? But if you can, stop consuming so much plastic, right? That whatever has accumulated in your body, hopefully your body will slowly work it out, detoxify it, excrete it, break it down, right? And the point is, and I say this in my book and in my program, it's like, stop toxifying. That's the number one, the first step in detoxification. It's not a supplement or a pill or a program. It's stop putting toxic stuff in your mouth and on your body. Like that's step one. If that's all you do, right? If you really become aware of what toxic ingredients are, and you start looking them up and reading labels and go to the environmental working group, for example, and look up all the different ingredients used in body care and cosmetics, just educate yourself on like what toxic ingredients are. If you just stop putting them, get them out of your life, over time, your body will flush out what you have ingested, right, or absorbed. So again, it's not a sales pitch, right? You can detoxify. You just have to stop putting the junk in.
And never get to the point where you're saying, well, it's a lost cause, right?
Right.
Yeah. And if that's what you're saying, that there's always hope, and always, there's so many small things. Like I love you bringing up, just stop drinking out of plastic water bottles. You're 90% there. That's tremendous.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. I mean, from that study, they said that the average person will go from consuming 90,000 nanoparticles a year to 4,000 nanoparticles a year, or microplastic particles a year, just by not drinking bottled water. So it's like 90% reduction in exposure. Easy. Plus, it's polluting the environment too.
Right.
Like
it's better for
the bottled water industry needs to just go away.
Right. It does. It does.
Like it's ridiculous. Like it's so ridiculous.
It's crazy. And also,
I'm torn because I've definitely been in a pinch, right? Where it's like, I'm thirsty, I want some water. Usually I'm traveling, right? Or something. Get a bottle of water or I drink out of the fountain. And I really don't know, but I'm really leaning toward, you know what? I think I'd rather just drink the tap water than drink the bottled water.
It's so true. Like we get on those situations, whether you're at an airport. Now airports are getting better though. There are a lot of the ones internationally have the fill-up stations, but you're at an airport or you're at a gas station. It's like, what is better to do or not? And the truth is, like the other day I filled up my water bottle out of a drinking fountain, like an old school one that I'm always like, because my mind also goes germs. But I was like, what is worse? It's the water bottle's worse. I mean, it's been sitting in the heat. It's been transferred across the states in the trucks and all these kind of things in general, that there's no way to stabilize the plastic. It's the bottom line.
What's the lesser of two evils? Yeah, the dilemma.
Yeah, you're better at just trying to get sink water. I mean, at the end of the day, what I wanted to wrap up too is also, I think that sometimes people feel like everything is so daunting. So they hear all these like scary things or gross things, whatever you want to call it. And what would be your advice, your simple steps? If someone said, today, I've just heard Chris and I want to make some changes, but I'm just starting the baby journey. What would your advice be?
Listen, the most powerful things you can do for your health, most of them cost you nothing. They cost you nothing.
Yep.
I have nothing to sell you. I do have 3 books, but you don't have to buy my books. It's okay.
But we love your books.
Right? I'm going to give you just the most powerful, simple things. If you really want to learn why they're so powerful, you could read my books. But number 1 is a plant-based diet, whole plant foods. I mean, just eating more fruits and vegetables is huge. It really is. Number 2 is exercise. Yeah. Mind blower, everybody. Exercise strengthens your immune system. It improves your cardiovascular health. It increases detoxification. It is the best antidepressant, right? Exercise is the best way to alleviate the pressures of stress versus all the other toxic ways we talked about. Sunlight and fresh air are so healing and so wonderful. Getting out in nature, getting in green spaces, taking a walk in the woods, spending the afternoon at the park, just getting out every day for 20 minutes, walking in the sunshine. And here's the thing, the infrared light from the sun is incredibly healing for your body. It increases melatonin production, does all these wonderful things, and it goes through your clothes.
Yeah.
So you can be fully clothed outside and get the incredible benefits of infrared light. UV light's what makes you tan, but infrared goes through your clothes into your body and it charges you up. These are free things, right? Yeah. Eating healthier doesn't have to cost more money. If you stop spending money on Starbucks and alcohol and eating out, you will have more money to buy organic produce.
Yes. But I do think that that's really important is that you just literally just starting simply. And I think everything you said really goes back to us connecting with nature, doesn't it? When you said go outside, when you're talking about plant-based, and we have spent in this digital world and we're bombarded with images constantly, we don't take the moment to connect often as we should with nature and either just standing outside and grounding, on the grass or recognizing the sunshine. It really all goes back to connecting with the earth, which is what feeds us.
Living in harmony with nature.
Living in harmony with nature.
Takeaway. It's funny, that kind of sums it all up because that was an idea that kept rolling around in my head when I was trying to get well. I was like, how can I live more in harmony with nature?
Yeah.
And if you keep asking that question about the way you're eating, the time you're spending indoors versus outdoors, your bedtime, right? Almost every aspect of your life, like if you keep kind of just using that criteria, how can I live more in harmony with nature and think about how did my ancestors live? How much different is my life now than my ancestors? Then you start to see, oh, well, all these modern improvements and technologies and things are taking me farther and farther away from living a natural life. Well, Kara and Brian, it's been awesome to reconnect. Brian, I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so glad that you've hit this milestone of survival and that you're both dedicated to educating people, to encouraging them, giving them hope, giving them resources. And we're on the same team and it's great. I'm just so glad you're doing this. And it's so neat to know that I was a small, part of your story. I mean, that's what I hoped would happen, 15 years ago when I started ChrisBeatCancer.com. I hoped I'd be able to encourage some people and help them survive and thrive. And so man,
right, I guess I'm an OG thriver
in
your world there. I'm OG.
You were one of a very small number of people that found me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. Look at now. I mean, all the lives that you've changed. This is wonderful. And I told you, I said, we're documenting it, but I remember you telling me you're going to want to talk about things on a mass level as soon as you get excited, but you can change your community around you in the meantime, right? And let them learn from you. But you really want to make sure that the journey, has been complete. 10 years was our big goal, and now we're at 15. And so it's exciting.
It's awesome. Yeah. You just focus on the people that want your help,
Yeah.
If you put yourself out there, the right people will find you and you just can't worry about. It's there's a lot of people you want to convince that aren't interested, but you just can't worry about those folks, right? You just focus on the ones that are ready and willing and they're paying attention. That's where you get the most joy and satisfaction, and what in any endeavor, right, is just helping people that want your help. I'll close with one thing, and this is something that I talk about in Beat Cancer Daily and maybe in my first book too, but I think it's really important to start to entertain this idea or belief that your life after cancer will be even better than it was before cancer. And I think a lot of patients think my life is over, right? And they think, I mean, this is just so horrible and so scary. And like, they just wish they could go back to, their blissful, cancer-free life, right? But the truth is cancer, the experience is so transformative. It resets your perspective. It gives you so much gratitude and joy and wisdom. And I mean, everything in your life really does get better. And obviously, even for folks that don't end up surviving, that end up succumbing to the disease, we've just gotten so much feedback and seen so many messages personally, and then just messages out there in the world that had nothing to do with me, of people who will say, cancer changed my life for the better. It really was a blessing, even though here I am in a hospital dying. Like, it changed every aspect of my life for the better, and I see the beauty in it. So anyway, obviously we can talk for hours and hours. It's been really fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah. Great to meet you.
It's so great to see that, you had a vision and that vision is happening, and it's just wonderful, and it fills my heart.
That was a really inspiring interview. Some of the information was so good, simple, but good.
And y'all, I'm actually completely blown away right now at the fact of the carrots and how it can turn you orange.
That Brian
and the
turned
fact
orange?
that Brian turned orange. I mean, do we have pictures of this?
Yeah,
I would love to see pictures of it.
Molly, I think we do. And I got to tell you, it was really funny because I kept saying, like, he was drinking so much carrot juice. Like, I mean, it took
Poor
a long
Brian.
No, it took a long time. It was like in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And then we pared down after a couple months after surgery, because we got like a foot of his colon taken out. We went down to twice a day, but still, it was a lot. Think about that. It's a lot of carrot juice. The other day, I just ate a bunch of carrots and I cooked with carrots, and you get the little bit of the orange right away on your fingertips.
Yes.
He was no orange. And then all of a sudden, one day, it was like, we were like, it was so crazy. And he was like orange. And it did go away, and he was okay. But it took a long time for his body to really be absorbing. I mean, like Chris said, they were obviously taking the nutrients and using it the way it needed to, right? And it finally got to a point where it was like a normal person would with too much carrot juice. But yeah,
you were
it's a real
waiting
thing.
on that carotenoemia to show up so that you knew it was working.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was really funny. I mean, my family had a heyday with me. They're like, you turned your husband orange.
Did he look like an Oompa Loompa?
He did. And it was like in certain spots. All of a sudden one day it was a little bit on his palms. And then it was like the next day he was like, and we stopped. But the next day he even got oranger. and then it started to go away. Yeah. But it was really funny. It was really, really fun. And we were all excited. We're like, you're orange.
You've got to upload the picture. You really got to upload the picture.
I will try to find.
do.
I'm sure we have one somewhere. I'm sure we do. It was really, really funny. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And I mean, another thing too that I think that is really important is he touched on, connecting with nature. And I had said forest bathing, which is a practice that they do in Japan and a lot of other places, and where you connect with the forest, right? You go out there with just yourself and you bathe yourself in the energy of the trees and the forest and just kind of feel and center that. And I practice earthing, which is, the same concept where you have your shoes off, and no matter where you live, you sort of go stand in the grass and really feel connected to the earth. And that was also a big part of, what even Brian did on his journey. And it was making sure you connect to nature. And I think we all can do that. And it's such a gift. When you put your feet in the sand as a kid, it really connects you, right?
Right.
And you feel like the world melts away. And it's something we can simply do every day for even just 2 minutes, right? It's just sort of connect with the earth in a way. And I thought that was really, really powerful advice too, and simple.
Seems like it would give you a meditation, like an automatic meditation with the earth.
Yeah, it's meditating without making it difficult or complicated.
Well, I'll do that sometimes, like if we're working from home and I've been on the phone for 6 hours straight with no restroom break or anything like that. Sometimes I'll just walk outside and I'll let the sun hit me. I take my shoes off and I'll go stand in the grass for 5 minutes and just let the sun soak in. And it does help.
It does help. It really it resets you. I mean, or even just laying like a child. I do this. I'll sometimes lay like a little kid in the grass, like a little patch of grass on my back. Because when you're younger, when you were little, that was the way for you to connect and feel like you're letting go of everything and anything can happen and, everything is positive. And that feeling of just sort of connecting your whole body to the earth, I think is pretty amazing.
The sun
Absolutely.
is healing too. So that's also
Sun is very healing.
Another good thing.
As long as you wear your sunblock for the bad UV, but yes, the sun is definitely healing. I mean, we can get trapped in our house and in that routine of just, especially with this work from home environment that we all are, a lot of us are getting used to and having to do. It's like, you really need to, the sun is healing.
It is.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really thought about a lot was looking around my kitchen.
Yeah.
And after talking about the microplastics, I was looking around the kitchen. I'm looking in my fridge. I'm looking at the shelf in my garage. And I was scared of how much we have that is in plastic bottles everywhere. And knowing that you can reduce your exposure by 90% if we just stop drinking and water or beverages out of plastic bottles. And I was just thinking, wow, everything that we drink in my family right now is in a plastic bottle. So it was eye-opening.
Another good takeaway for everyone to realize, even when he says that 90%, is even if you're someone who doesn't drink out of water bottles, look at the containers you have in your fridge, whether it's the dressings or anything else, right? It is it's better for the environment, obviously, not to drink out of a water bottle. It's better for you, but we don't think about how many things are packaged in plastics. When Brian had his cancer journey, when he was at the heart of it, for those first 2 years, we didn't buy anything with plastic. And it wasn't even because at the time 15 years ago, there was news about plastics showing up in our brains or microplastics showing up in human tissue. It was because the leaching. We knew that, if plastic gets heated up, you have the leaching factor of leaching chemicals into it. And now we know it's even farther than that these microplastics are literally showing up. Just like we talked about the cutting boards. And we've talked about on social media that you could ingest as much as I don't remember what it was, 5 to 7 credit cards in your lifetime just by using a plastic cutting board and having those little pieces of plastic, end up in your food. So
scary.
And when they were doing testing on dead bodies, they were able to find enough plastic to make cadavers to make a plastic spoon.
Right.
In one person's brain. And that just blew me away. I was thinking, well, I really need to make some simple changes for the health and safety of my kids.
And this is, by the way, everyone needs to understand, if you Google this, there are trusted news sources reporting this, right? I think that's a really important thing, because I think this was rumored before some major news sources picked it up. But I think the original study that everyone's talking about right now is out of New Mexico.
It is.
Right? Is out of New Mexico. And that's the one with the cadaver brains. But there are multiple news sources reporting on it. And also, if you look, there's been multiple studies, because this one just happens to be the most shocking, because they can actually say, we're finding X amount of, plastic in these brains. But this is...
And it attaches to other organs too. But the fact that it's increased over 50% in the brain in the past 8 years is
alarming.
It's eye-opening. It's very alarming.
And I think it's baby steps, right?
It is.
I mean, we're in a situation with Brian. We had to make major steps, and we'll talk more about it with him our next episode. But we had to make big swinging steps, right? We had to come in with a bat, and we had to get rid of cans. We had to get rid of everything. But you can start to do these little things in your home now, right? Little by little, and improve your health, right? That as you keep stacking them, eventually the next thing you know, you've eliminated 80% of the toxins in your life, which is a pretty cool thing, because it's something we actually have control over. That's the big takeaway. And we also, once again, want to remind everybody,
just remember, with all the information we've heard today, it's always important to choose a medical doctor and healthcare professional who diagnoses and treats patients with whatever serious condition or ailment or injury that a patient might have. So just remember, consult your licensed medical professional.
Yes, always consult your licensed medical professional. We are talking about some really cool, simple things you can do to improve your health, but we are not doctors, nor is Chris. You need to get proper medical care and help for diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And we're excited because next week we will hear more from Brian, and you guys will hear more of his story, some things that you've never heard before when it comes to the story of the angel that Brian saw, which is pretty cool.
Well, I can't wait.
Yeah, he never tells the story, but he's going to tell it here on Oh Gross. We're pretty excited about that. And what do we need to do, girls? What does everybody need to do by Friday?
You need to go and vote. Voting ends Thursday, April the 17th. Please vote for us for the Webbies. Kara, what are we nominated for?
We are nominated for a Webby Award. We're nominated for 2. One is Jurd, which you can't vote for, but you can vote for is the People's Voice Award for our episode that we did with Carrie Sanders on the LA fires and misinformation in crisis.
So how do you vote?
Well, you can go to tinyurl.com/ohgrosswebby, and that's WEBBY.
You can make it easy and just go to our socials at It's Oh Gross. We have it there, and we have it at ohgross.com. So remember, it's one vote, one click, one beautifully weird community. We can do this together. We're up against CNN and a lot of big PhD people. We are you. We are asking the questions you want answered. So vote for us.
Oh, gross.
Oh, gross. That drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky's what we do. Psoriasis, podiatrist, and pinworms too. It's so gross. No need for strife, because gross. Life is part of life, it's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. We got the facts, nothing to fear. Oh, gross. It's just science, no, it's not weird. It's just science, nothing to fear. It's just science, so wipe those tears. It's boogers and rush and that sticky scratch. Oh, gross.